A divorce lawyer just sat down and told the internet something most men don't want to hear and something most women don't want to admit. James Sexton has watched thousands of marriages fall apart, and in this clip, he's not holding back. He's going to explain what weaponized intimacy really means, why so many marriages end up in trouble, and the simple 30 minutes a week habit he says could actually make a difference. But first, let's start with the numbers, because before we talk about fixing marriage, we need to understand what's actually going wrong. Let's get into it.
Over 50% of marriages end in divorce. There's probably another 5 to 10%. That's at least what most of the statistics say, that they separate but never divorce. And then there's another 20 to 25% that have what's called a low marriage satisfaction rate, where essentially they say, yeah, I wish I hadn't married this person. Which those numbers are terrifying if you think about it. Like, the chances of you having a successful, happy marriage are very low.
So let us just sit with that for a second. A huge number of marriages end in divorce, and another significant number of couples stay together while deeply unhappy. And then, this is the part people skip past. What happens when a marriage looks fine from the outside, but is falling apart behind closed doors? Sexton's argument is that the numbers are not something we should, simply shrug off. And here's a number that doesn't get talked about enough. Women initiate roughly 70% of divorces. That's consistent with Stanford research and not just something pulled from the internet, right? Now, men, if you're watching this and you're married or thinking about getting married, this is not me telling you to be scared of marriage. It's telling you to understand the risk. And when the risks are real, you don't ignore them, you prepare for them. But statistics are only part of the story. What actually happens when a marriage falls apart can be far more complicated. And that's where things get interesting.
It might be funny to you, but I've seen men on the brink of suicide after this stuff. Andrew, these are real things that happen every single day. Men are 9 times more likely to commit suicide after a divorce.
Now, here's what they don't put in wedding vows. When it falls apart, it doesn't fall apart evenly. Sexton points to the financial side of divorce, including alimony, where men have historically been the primary payers. And that is partly because family law was built around an era when men were assumed to be the breadwinners. And then there is a part that should get far more attention, and that is the relationship between divorce and men's mental health. Research has found a dramatic difference in suicide risk between divorced men and divorced women, with one US study finding divorced men were 9 times more likely to die by suicide than divorced women. Let that sink in. We'll talk about custody, we'll talk about money, but that number tells us something we cannot ignore. Divorce can have a devastating impact on men. So if the risks are this serious, is there actually anything a man can do before he finds himself in that position? Turns out, yes. And it starts with a conversation most couples are too scared to have.
Get married as many times as you want if you have a prenup. If you have a prenup, go get married. Getting married is a blast. Being married is difficult. Someone once said that it's great to be married sometimes. The problem is you're married all the time.
So you're a fan of prenups?
I'm a huge fan of prenups. I mean, I shouldn't be, because a prenup for a couple of $1,000s will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially in legal fees, if not millions. So there are clients I have that have spent over $1 million just in their legal fees, that if they had spent $2,000 on a prenup, none of that. They'd still have that money in their pocket. The easiest prenup in the world. Easiest. Yours, mine, ours. That's it. If it's in my name, it's mine. If it's in your name, it's yours. If it's in our joint names, we'll divide it 50-50. That's it.
This is a part of the interview men need to actually sit with. Sexton is not saying this as a cynic. He's saying it as someone who has watched men lose everything because they avoided a difficult conversation before marriage. And his basic structure is stupidly simple. Yours, mine, ours. What's in your name is yours. What's in my name is mine. What's joined gets dealt with according to agreement. That's the basic idea behind the prenup. Now, here's my take. This is not about planning to fail. It's about protecting your future. You don't skip a seatbelt because you're a good driver. You wear it because you don't know what the other guy is going to do. A prenup is a seatbelt. If you are a man watching this and you are getting married without one, Go back to what we just talked about. Think about the financial consequences of divorce, then decide whether that awkward conversation is really worse than the alternative. Now, money is one kind of damage, but there is a darker side to divorce that has nothing to do with assets and everything to do with what happens when the person who knows you best turns that knowledge against you.
Dark side of marriage, or the dark side of divorce, is weaponized intimacy. That's really what he's talking about. Like, to love someone and to be loved by them, you have to show them the soft spots, like the soft targets. Like, you have to be willing to, like, put your hands up and expose everything. Expose your throat, the whole thing. Because you know that they love you and that they're not going to cut your throat. The word intimacy, we think it's about sex. Intimacy is the ability to be completely yourself with another person. That's the definition of the word. So to be intimate with someone, you have to be vulnerable and open. When you weaponize intimacy, that is the darkest thing there is. Because this person has trusted you with the things they're most afraid of, the things that they're most hurt by. Like, they've trusted you with that so you could love them. And help them feel safe in a world that feels unsafe. And now you can weaponize that against them. I think that's the most frightening feeling that you can have.
This is the part of the clip that actually stopped me. Weaponized intimacy. Think about what he's saying. To love someone, you hand them a loaded weapon. And these are your fears, your insecurities, the things you don't show anyone else. That's what intimacy is. And in a healthy marriage, that person never pulls the trigger. They just hold it. That's the deal. But in a marriage that is dying or a divorce that's gone nuclear, that same information can become ammunition. The things that made you vulnerable can be used against you in an argument, in court, or even in front of your children. And I think this helps explain why some men shut down emotionally after a devastating relationship. It's not necessarily that they stopped being capable of intimacy. It's that they learned, sometimes the hard way, that the person they trusted with their vulnerabilities could use them against them. And honestly, I can understand why that would make some men think twice about opening up again. The tragedy is what that fear can do to every relationship that comes after. And so if that's the damage, we're talking about the money, the risk, the way trust can be turned into a weapon. Is there actually a way to protect yourself before it gets to that point? Sexton says yes, and it's simpler than you think.
So like, if you're in love and you're feeling it and they're feeling it, like our relationship's in a good spot, that's a great time to start thinking about this phenomenon. Here's all you have to do is just once a week, have a conversation with your partner. Just say to your partner, hey, tell me 3 things I did this week that made you feel loved. And I'll tell you 3 things you did this week that made me feel loved. And then if you're really brave, say, what are 3 things I could have done better this week when it comes to you and me? I'll tell you, if we're brave enough, I'll tell you 3 things that you could have done better, right? And then if you want to make it even fun, because I like to end on fun things, tell me 3 things I did this week made you want to have sex with me. And I'll tell you 3 things you did this week made me want to have sex with you. Like, because we're in a relationship. We're in a romantic relationship. We're not roommates. We're in a relationship. So if we're in a relationship, don't we want to keep that spark?
Now, to be clear, this fixes for married men or people in relationships, because I know a lot of men have already checked out of getting married. Ask your wife, ask your woman, what are 3 things that made you feel loved? What are 3 things that could have been better? Half an hour once a week. This works if both people are actually trying. If your relationship is already one-sided, as in if you're the only one showing up, this exercise is going to expose that pretty quickly, and maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. So this is not a fix for a relationship where only one person cares. It's maintenance for a relationship where both people do. But if you're in a decent marriage and things have just gone stale, gone quiet, gone into roommate mode, this is one of the most useful low-effort tools I've heard a divorce lawyer recommend. So where does all this leave us? Here's where I land on all this. I don't think marriage is necessarily broken because people suddenly stopped loving each other. There are a whole lot of factors that can lead to a marriage breaking down. We're talking about no-fault divorce, unrealistic expectations, changing family laws, the declining stigma around divorce, and the list goes on. Regardless of all these factors, there are still strong, healthy marriages that continue to stand as positive examples in today's changing world. There's a proverb in my language that goes, Oju ni alakàn fi ń ṣọ́rí, which translates literally to the crab uses its eyes to carry its head. The deeper meaning of this proverb emphasizes awareness and vigilance. It also suggests that just as the crab depends on its own eyes to navigate and protect itself, individuals, men in this instance, must take responsibility for their own well-being, make wise decisions, and remain alert in life. So over to you guys. I need to hear from you. If this video gave you something to think about, drop a comment. I read every one of them. And if you want to support the channel directly, there's a link in the description to buy me a coffee. It genuinely helps keep this channel independent and allows me to keep having these conversations about men, marriage, and relationships. And full credit goes to the Callum Johnson Show and James Sexton for the original insights in this video. I'll leave a link to his content in the description, so go check him out and hear more from him. Subscribe if you want more conversations about men, marriage, divorce, and what actually works in relationships. Thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll see you in the next one.